morning, students. I hope you all are doing well. I am Kumari Shalini, Assistant Professor from ABES Engineering College, and the topic of today's discussion is purpose of presentation. So, before we get to know what exactly is the purpose of presentation, we should first know what exactly is the word presentation. When it comes to presentation, it is a two-way process therein one person is communicating to a group of people or two or more people, right? We must have seen a lot of presentation during our lifetime. So a presentation is relatively formal kind of talk requiring presentation and some amount of writing. We need to prepare beforehand because we are presenting to a group of people or somebody. So it is participative. It is a two-way communication process because there is a speaker which sends the message, encodes the message, and there at the other end there is a receiver. And it is characterized by formal and structured presentation message. So whenever we are presenting something to somebody, it's always formal, right? And when we talk about communication as a two-way process, so, herein, whatever the message the sender wants to send should be encoded properly and that should be decoded by the receiver so that the message is complete. There is a proper feedback at the end. So, now that we have understood what is presentation, we'll get to know what are the characteristics of presentation. So, a presentation has to be purposeful, it has to be interactive, formal, audience oriented. So, when I say the word purposeful, whenever we are presenting a presentation to somebody, obviously it should hold a purpose. For example, today's presentation has a purpose of teaching the students what exactly is presentation. Or it can be to send a message. It can be to tell the audience about any new change in policy in the organization. The second important point is it has to be interactive. Why? Because we have seen a lot of people presenting. It does not always require the PowerPoint presentation, but people presenting their speech, their ideas, and it needs to be interactive because people tend to listen. They'll not get bored. They'll listen to your ideas, right? So it has to be interactive. It has to be a two-way process. The second or third point, it has to be formal. Obviously, whenever you're presenting in front of a group of people, or be it one or two people, it has to be formal because it has a purpose. And the last point or the fourth point is it is audience oriented. So audience play a very important role when it comes to presentation because we should know beforehand to what kind of audience we are presenting our presentation to. We should know the audience, their understanding, their demographics, their interests, and everything. Uh, The next topic is planning the presentation. So, how should one plan their presentation? So, the first thing one should take care of in mind is the introduction. So, when it comes to introduction, it has to be very catchy when somebody is trying to introduce their presentation or something. So, it grabs the attention of the audience. So, attention of the audience is very important. The next is defining the purpose. Obviously, when you're presenting a presentation or when you're presenting your ideas to somebody, you should do this in advance, that you should know what the purpose is and you should be able to communicate that to your audience. So this is why we are here today. This is what the purpose of the meeting or purpose of the presentation. If we know what the purpose of the meeting or presentation is beforehand, we know what pointers we have to listen or we have to pay attention to. The next is analyzing audience and locale. So why analyzing audience and locale is important? Because who are we presenting to? We need to analyze that beforehand. Let's suppose I have made this presentation today, and this presentation is for graduates, right? Or the students who are pursuing their BTech degree. What if I take this presentation and I give this to, let's suppose, a first grade student? Will he be able to understand what I'm talking about? Obviously not. Or let's say, if I start presenting a presentation on calculus to a first grade or fifth grade student, will he be able to understand the concept? Obviously not. So, analyzing the audience and locale is very important. And last point in planning the presentation is organizing the contents. So, organizing the content is very important because it has to have a proper sequence. The audience should be able to understand what the presentation is all about. So, talking about introduction, the topic is a general outline of the subject. It should arouse the interest of the audience because when you're introducing something, the audience should be interested by the topic. You should stand alone as a message. So, what is the message all about? It should stand alone. And the introduction should tell something about the presentation, like the topic of today's presentation is the purpose of presentation. So, the introduction which I started did tell about presentation. So this is how an introduction should be. It is telling about the topic, what is the presentation all about. The next is defining purpose. As we have already discussed, when we talk about presentation, there's always a purpose. It can be either to inform, let's suppose there's a change in policy in the department or in the college or in the university. So the university can hold or show a presentation to the students to inform about it. It can be to persuade. You must have seen a lot of Shark Tank videos, right? So what happens there? They present their ideas, they present their products, and what do they do after that? They persuade the judges to just fund them or whatever their demands are. And the last one is demonstrate. We must have seen a lot of new products being launched in the market. So we have seen a lot of demonstration of the products. What can that product do? How that product can help us and why should one buy it? So the next purpose is to demonstrate. Talking about the next topic is analyzing the audience or to analyze the audience. So here we see what is the audience all about. A stands for audience. So we should know what kind of audience we have to deal with. You understand for the understanding. So I did tell the understanding of a person, of a literate person and illiterate person would be different. We have seen a lot of political leaders giving public speeches, and their speeches can be understood by a literate or illiterate people because they analyze the kind of audience they would be dealing with. The next is demographics. So, demographic tells the age, the gender, the educational background, the job titles which people have. So, this is what demographics is all about. The next is interest. Will the audience be interested in the presentation you will be presenting, the kind of environment they will be sitting in, the kind of the environment they are in? And next is the need. What does the audience need? Why will this grab the interest of the audience? C is for customized. We can customize our presentation according to the likes, dislikes, understanding of the audience. And the last one is expectation. So let's suppose we're teaching a fifth grader or a first grader or a master student or a bachelor student. We would have to understand the interest, the expectations of the audience or the students you're teaching. So how can you reach that expectation of the audience? So when it comes to a presentation, you can add humor. To add interest, you can add a lot of questionnaires so that the involvement of the audience is there. So this is why analyzing the audience is important to grab the attention of the people or the audience. The next is analyzing the locale. So place of presentation is very important. Locale is the surrounding where one will be presenting their presentation. So beforehand, as a speaker or as a presenter, one should know where are they presenting, whether it is a large auditorium or a conference room, whether a podium or a table would be provided, what is the seating arrangement, what would be the room temperature and lighting, and so on and so forth. And when we talk about visual aids, it's very important when it comes to presentation because it again grabs the attention of the audience. And when we show a picture or anything related to the visual aids, it stays with the audience. So whenever we identify any problem in the locale, as a presenter or somebody who should be presenting, should be ready with the locale, should be very understanding with the kind of environment they would be dealing with. The next point is organize your presentation into three major parts. The first one is introduction, main body, and conclusion. So this is about the content matter of the presentation. So when we talk about presentation, the introduction of the presentation is very important. It should be very catchy so that it catches the interest of the audience. It should tell what your presentation is all about. Next comes the main body, which should follow either the chronological order, inductive, or the deductive order. And the last one is you should question to answer. We can start our presentation with the question, and the last one is conclusion. So it should just sum up the entire presentation. That's all for today's video. Thank you.